My name is Melissa Cooper. I'm 47 years old. I've had rheumatoid arthritis for nearly 6 years. It was diagnosed after I had severe appendicitis and came on very suddenly and affects quite a large number of my joints around my body. The fatigue, everyone thinks of RA just in terms of joints and people with strange shaped joints. My grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, so I was aware of a lot of the problems which are caused, but particularly the tiredness and the fact that sometimes it's just like wading through treacle. You can't explain it to people, you can't tell them how you feel. It's not like a natural tiredness, it's just like your body shuts down and there's nothing you can do. I used to fight against it, and that's the worst possible thing. You need to give in to it and you'll come out the other side a lot quicker. I work full time. I'm a commuter, so I go to London every day on the train. I have a disabled badge because some days I have problems walking first thing in the morning, and some days I'm not too bad. I'm lucky to get a seat first stop on the train every day, but if I wasn't, people would look at me and think, well, there's nothing wrong with her. She doesn't look like she's disabled. Why is she parked in a disabled bay? What's wrong with her? She's a fraud. And I think that's a misconception. Just because you don't see things outwardly doesn't mean to say people aren't struggling day to day with problems with their rheumatoid arthritis. It is an issue. I work quite long hours when I can, which is not always the best thing with my condition, but I have really good support from my work colleagues because the people around me know what my condition is, they know how it affects me, they take things into consideration, and often they'll say to me, you're looking tired, you need to have a bit of a break or sit down. But the average person walking past me when I'm just looking like I've had a rough day, like everyone else on the train coming home, wouldn't think that there was anything untoward, to be honest with you. One of my best friends has MS. Unfortunately, she isn't able to work anymore because of the nature of her disease, but we often go out together in the evenings or on the train to London, and if we come home and there's no seats, we're often in need of some sitting down time because we're both quite tired. And if we ask for a seat, people would look at us and say, well, the two ordinary middle-aged women, why do they need to sit down? What's the problem with them? So we're about to start a campaign to our local train company, which is Chiltern Railways. I'm actually a member of the Passenger Association for High Wycombe, and asked them if they would consider helping people who don't look disabled but might need assistance by coming up with some kind of badge, perhaps like the baby on board, but perhaps with just a little disabled sign. So if we are able to wear those, people would allow us a seat on the train when it's really packed and we're in need of it, so that we can sit down. They're very good in terms of transporting people to and from trains who are obviously disabled, but I think things need to change in terms of perception of people that look okay and perhaps aren't. So I am going to be writing to Chiltern in the next few weeks and see if they're interested in becoming involved in some sort of awareness for people that have disabilities that needs more assistance. My grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis. I lived with my grandmother when I was a small child with my mother because she cared for her. She was diagnosed in her late 50s and she died aged 64. I remember for the last year of her life, she was on lots of steroids and they were in their infancy then, and the side effects of the drugs that were treating her RA actually had a terrible effect on her body, and I would say they hastened her death at a very early age of 64. So when I was diagnosed some years ago, obviously my mother was absolutely petrified. She had been through this experience of nursing her own mother, and when her daughter was diagnosed, she had a very pessimistic view of the prognosis and what was going to happen to me. I think in the last 5 years her attitude has changed dramatically, seeing the drugs that I've been on, how they've revolutionised my life, going from methotrexate onto an anti-TNF and being a person with almost no sign of RA outwardly. I'm a very lucky person. I'm a great success story in terms of anti-TNF. So her attitude towards my capabilities and the fact that I'm not going to end up like her mother has changed considerably. And then 6 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with a positive RA marker, and in the last 3 months she's also been diagnosed with spondylitis. So she's about to start going through this journey of diagnosis and potential drugs. And I think it's helped her to know that she wouldn't necessarily be the same as her mother. I'm a success story, and there's no reason why she can't be as well. She's 75, she's very active, and I think there's been some hope for her that she is not just going to disintegrate into someone that can't move around and just lay in bed and die in a horrible way, which is what happened to my grandmother. So we have 3 generations of experience now, but medicine has moved on so much, and I think it's much more positive outcome for people like us, and hopefully she will be as lucky as I am.